From being the lamest member of a team that had Aquaman, to the whole Flashpoint fiasco that still has everyone salty. Here's why the Flash is the worst superhero of all time. Before you all come after me, let me explain. The Flash isn't as great as the CW's Barry Allen might have you believe, and today I'll tell you why. Starting with the most obvious, he's just so lame. By the time his comic books finally came to an end, fans had run out of patience for his antics, even though he had been in some of the most important stories in the DC universe. His character arc ended just as it had started, a boy who can run fast. If Barry hadn't been killed, and if his legacy hadn't been boosted for readers by every hero who talked about him, it's safe to say that everyone would have forgotten about him and moved on to DC's other greatest heroes. He was just a big jock who never really grew up. Fans were tired of his pranks and he was killed off because his early adventures and personality were so typical. One reason he's so famous now is that after he came back, the writers turned him into a teacher for Wally West, who was so much better than him. His one-liners and his unfunny jokes, especially the ones that he made when people were in danger, made it hard for us to love him. But we could have lived with his lame jokes. What we couldn't get on board with was the fact that he joined Superman in Injustice. During his dictatorship, it's undeniable that Superman became super evil. After seeing Lois Lane brutally killed and hearing his sad story of how he became a bad guy, it's hard not to at least see his point of view. Even though he's crazy, he managed to gather a loyal group of fans and allies, which kept getting stranger and stranger. But nothing could have prepared us for Barry Allen joining his side. Bringing us to Injustice, Year 5, Number 14, by Brian Bucciardo and Tom Derenick. While he agreed that Superman went too far, he still needed to be there for him and help keep him in check. Although he didn't stop the hero-turned-villain for half a decade, Allen even turned down Batman when he asked him to go back in time and stop the Man of Steel. Even though that would fix everything, he thought that people should just accept that they deserve to live in a harsh society. I gotta say, while he wasn't as bad as Superman, it still made him super unlikable. Like Supes had a solid reason, but Flash didn't. If that wasn't bad enough, he always lied to everyone around him. He often lied to his girlfriend, Iris West, even though he said he loved her. It's hard to be a superhero, keep your identity a secret, and think about the safety of your family. But sometimes Barry has gone too far. In the Rebirth story, he lied to Iris because he didn't want her to find out who he was. Of course, that made her super angry, and she figured out pretty quickly that he was hiding something from her. He made the love of his life feel like she was dumb for trusting him. But she wasn't the only person who shouldn't have trusted him. He attacked his friends too. Let's step into the Arrowverse for a moment. As he learned more about how powerful he was, he started acting more rashly. And if I'm honest, kind of stupidly. I mean, he let himself be manipulated multiple times. Eddie, who was with Iris at the time, was one of his targets. And he also hurt the Green Arrow, who was one of his best friends. At another time, he attacked his friends and came very close to destroying the Speed Force. Even though everyone makes mistakes, this guy can be careless sometimes. And nothing was worse than when he created Savitar. In the CW's Flash, Barry has also had a lot of enemies. Unfortunately, he proved that he was his own biggest enemy. Savitar was an angry, mean version of himself from the future who had lost everyone he cared about. He wanted to go back in time and kill his best friend and lover, Iris. He created Savitar when he was trying to stop Zoom from changing the past, so that entire mess was all on him. The most heartbreaking part was that Sav started out as kind and brave as everyone else. People he cared about turned their backs on him and made fun of him for having a disposable life. This is what pushed him to change and become the monster that had destroyed his life. But again, Allen has never been very smart with his decisions, and fans couldn't get over the fact that he broke the biggest superhero rule out there. He took justice into his own hands and killed Gord. That's the only thing that makes superheroes different from bad guys. They're supposed to have a moral code, and that includes not killing people. The Flash didn't care about this when he went back in time to stop multiple crimes. He went right to Gorilla Grodd's hideout and chose to put a small bomb in the ape's head to get rid of the threat for good. Grodd's head was blown right off. Brutal, right? But he didn't stop there. He was also to blame for the villain, the Top, going crazy and killing himself. When Barry was going through his identity crisis, he met the cruel Top. He had Zatanna remove the villain's memories so he could change him into a better person and fix his destructive ways. The Top did change, but he was so disgusted by his past actions that he offed himself, so the plan didn't work in the end. But did our hero learn his lesson? Of course not. He did the same thing to Dr. Light. After the Doctor assaulted Sue Dibney, the Scarlet Blur went against half of the Justice League, including Batman, and wiped his memory. He still didn't learn his lesson, and ended up killing yet another person. He ended the Reverse Flash too. In the last episode of Season 8 of The Flash, Tom Cavanaugh's evil Reverse Flash showed up once again. The negative forces gave the first Eobard Thwain godlike powers, which he then used to destroy Central City. Since Season 1, when we found out that Harrison Wells was Eobard Thwain and the Reverse Flash, he became Flash's biggest enemy. He even killed his wife, Iris. This forced Barry to take things into his own hands and get rid of the threat. He ended his enemy's life, but then he was caught and tried for murder, which forced him to run away to the future. Not only did this break one of his rules, but it also made Reverse Flash hate him even more when he came back to life, which was horrible for the entire DC universe. While we can understand killing an enemy, especially one that took away someone that we all loved, nothing could have justified Barry ending the life of one of his friends, his protege, Wally West. There's no doubt that it took Wally some time to get a handle on things, but once he did a much better job at being the speedster than Alan ever did. The Flash did train him, making him one of the best sidekicks in history. And after the OG speedster died, West stepped up and changed what it meant to be the Flash. In doing so, he showed how brave he was. None of that would have been possible without his teacher's help. But the two always had their issues. Things usually cooled down before they got out of hand, mostly because of Iris. But that changed when the supposed hero went back in time. After killing Grodd, the Scarlet Blur killed his younger self, supposedly to stop him from making the same mistakes again. Unfortunately, Wally from the future showed up and Alan killed him with a shot that was meant for the original Barry. Yikes, right? That's a mistake that he could never really live down, and we never forgave him for it either. But the absolute worst thing that makes the Flash the worst superhero of all time is the Flashpoint. I know you've been waiting for this. Even if he killed or wiped the memories of a lot of people, the Flashpoint was the worst thing the speedster ever did. Even though he was only trying to save his mother, his selfishness changed reality. Because of this, everyone was subjected to a scary alternate world, where Bruce Wayne died as a child, Superman was locked up by the government, and the Amazons fought the Atlanteans. Barry had traveled through time before, but he was always very careful not to change the past in any way. This time, though, he messed things up so badly that it changed the entire fabric of time. On that note, from the whole Flashpoint fiasco that still has everyone salty, to being the lamest member of a team that had Aquaman, this was why the Flash is the worst superhero of all time.